Hey there. So today we're talking about Maura and Anne's new book, and I don't have it in front of me. And I'm sorry, I can't hold it up right now. And I'm actually spacing on the title, of course. We should have gone over that, guys. Oh my gosh. Any,
Uncover your recovery, uncover your healing.
I'm like seeing all the colors of the cover. Do either of you have your book handy?
I do.
These are the things we should have prepared.
Maura has it.
Uncover your recovery, uncover your healing. So Maura, I've known for a long time, and Anne soon after. And you guys been working on this book for, was it during 2020 that the idea came to you?
Well, actually, I started to write a book on the angels. And while I was in midstream of writing about the angels, Anne and I were teaching these classes for so long anyway, and we were like, we got the message, I guess, from Spirit and from each other. We need to turn this into a book. And we started working on it thinking, well, since we teach it, it's going to be quick. How'd that work out, Anne?
Worked out great.
Wait, it's right on the back of our book.
Not so
Heal your
quick.
life, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
We started it before I had come home from Florida. It was about 2019, and we started talking about it. And then uh, Maura was in the middle of that writing this other book. And I had then sent something to the publisher that we use, Jen, and I had her look at this other book that I was in the middle of writing. And I don't know how it happened. I really still don't know how it all happened, but then it just did. And then we started the process. And, as co-authors, it was really interesting to write a book together. We were flowing. It was some of the other challenges that we had. And a lot of the times we locked ourselves in rooms, in actual hotel rooms and the library. And
And
we
you're a house up in the mountains.
right here, up here in this room, actually. And we took it apart and then we put it back together again and rewrote a lot of it. So it took a while to do that because I think there was a stickiness to it and then it would just flow, and we were always on the same page and getting it done, and we finally did.
And there was some sabbatical in between. Like there were
Yeah.
months that we weren't dealing with the book and dealing with our own lives and things like that. So it's hard to put when someone says, how long did it take? Who knows? It takes a lifetime, right? All your experiences to get it in book form so that it makes sense and then lay out in the chapters. And we had a very, I guess, specific idea of how we wanted it to come out because it can also be used as a workbook, right? There's
Right.
interactive places in the book, and that's great in here and in theory, but to get it in print form, the
Mm-hmm.
translation, and then you're comfortable with it as the creator, they gave us creative design rights, on the
Right.
kudos, like, right? Because we
Also, like
wanted it in a certain way.
you had like this is like part of like your mission is to like peel back these things for the public. Like what's like the purpose of the book if you were to like, because people don't necessarily know, what's the book about and what's the purpose of it?
So I like saying, we're all recovering, we're all healing from something. And we both feel strongly that recovery kind of gets pigeonholed into addiction. And
Mm-hmm.
we want to broaden that,
Yeah.
including addiction, but
It has that stigma.
recovery, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the recovery is bigger than that, right, Ann?
Yeah, and it's also too, Karen, I think for us, it's about enhancing this idea of recovery. There's just so many different ways. There's so many groups that do these things and that, but we also know each one of us has our own unique voices that we bring to the world, right, in our own work. And I think that our voices in the way that we've been working with clients for forever, that the seeds to plant of taking care of your healing in certain ways. And Maura said it, you when we get pigeonholed into a certain way that you have to heal this and you have to do it this way and you have to do it that way, it doesn't work for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
because the way I might want to approach it is not the same. So we give people permission to kind of, just the word is curiosity. What resonates for you? What can you be curious about in your healing process? Maybe you want to stop cold turkey and that works for you. Maybe you just want to explore whatever it is that you've got challenged, to do it in a slow and easeful way.
because both of you guys are healers. So like we didn't even like introduce you really, like and like just the work that you've done and the clients you've seen and just the things that you regularly find yourself telling people is probably part of what you knew you needed to get down on paper. Because it's like, what's the wisdom that you share daily, weekly or whatever.
So you're a healer, Karen. So when you heal people and it just flows, now imagine if I said to you, you got to dial it back so remedially that you have to put it in step-by-step process to show someone else in print. You'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a minute, I just open up and whatever spirit, right? And
Blasted.
so we had to start with the first chapter is uncover your curiosity. What are you curious about your own life,
Mm-hmm.
behavior, choices, wounding, trauma, anything? And once you start looking at that, then we build from there. And yes, one of my favorite parts of the book is at the end of every chapter, there's a permission slip. Give
Mm-hmm.
yourself permission. And we have different permissions. And then in person, when we're doing these book signings, we give out permission slips so that people can create their own permission. I said to a couple of people, I go, here's your permission slip for today. And they said, for what? I said, for whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
And one woman said, I'm going to give myself permission to go home and lay on the couch and read a book. She was leaving Barnes and Noble and she bought like 5 books. Ours was one of them. She said, and I have so many things to do and I'm not doing them. I said, good for you.
Yeah. I know, because like I got you guys what you released it on November 11th, right? Like 11/11. So and I got a copy of it a few weeks later or something from you guys. And I read it because it's like, well, I'm supporting my friends. And I had this happen with another friend too, where when I read the book, like, wow, this is really good. It's like it's like a nice surprise because you don't know what your friend's gonna produce, not that I had any expectation, but I was like, oh, this is so good. Like I was so happy, like we included it in the gift basket for like a raffle thing. And
Yeah.
I had my own copy. So, and I read the whole thing and I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, this is so good. It's like such a practical foundation for people that are starting to peel back those layers and get introspective and tools in which to do it. And I wish I took notes on it and I could refer to them, but of course I didn't. But but I do remember it being very powerful and like good basic wisdom that we take for granted because we live in this world, but to actually communicate that to people that are just kind of discovering that, I thought was really good. And then I also appreciated you guys being so candid about your own life stories because you do keep them. I mean, I don't know, Anne, how you are like with your regular people because I'm not in your community as much, but like I know that Maura is general, but you don't like dive into like the different things from your childhood or your life. So I was like, oh, like I felt like I was holding you delicately, hearing your stories and stuff. So I was like, oh, that's so vulnerable to share the stuff from your past in the book. So it was nice to get to know you on a deeper level by reading it, and it was also cool to hear the way you guys shared your wisdom, and your life experiences within those structures or whatever. So
That's really sweet, and I appreciate that. And I think Ann and I have had the same experience that women have come to us now and have felt comfortable enough to share their stories of abuse. We both speak openly about the sexual abuse we've experienced in our childhood and young adolescence. And when people read that, it literally helps them to be vulnerable enough to trust somebody else because you do feel like someone understands or someone's been there or someone's open to listening and it makes it easier. But that opening is where the healing happens.
mhm.
Yeah. I think Karen, for me and more both, and I guess I can speak for more when I say this, is that, from our own experiences, I think that, we've all experienced different teachers in our lives. We've all gone to different teachers. And I've always had this thing about teachers who don't use, right? There's some people that use their themselves too much as a teacher and talk too much. But I think when you're trying to support people unconditionally with love and compassion and you offer up yourself and your own experiences, to me personally, I know it's supportive because we end up being teachers as we are, and then there's automatically this level that you go up in with people that, oh, you're a teacher and your life must be so perfect. I never want people to look at me that way. I am just like you or anyone else, and that we're all on this journey together, and it's challenging. And so I know I get a lot of good feedback from my own students and my own clients that it's helpful when I share my experience because they know I'm never going to not be authentic about that. And I think that we need that more from teachers. We need that more from our our people that we go to as, educators and things like that. Be honest about your stuff. So you're more relatable.
Right. Yeah. More vulnerable and real. And it just takes it,
Yeah.
it makes it a safe space then for them to like dive into their own thing and not feel so guarded about it or whatever.
Yeah, and get rid of the stigma that there's something wrong with it, right? So
Yeah.
much of the work that we deal with, and people still not wanting to talk about sexual abuse of kids or that kind of thing, or you feel like you've done something wrong. It was never your fault. I say it a million thousand times because that's the words that someone said to me
Yeah.
when I started my healing journey. And it was never your fault. I
Right.
don't, right? And so we have to say that to people, and people need to hear that. So
And then
it's
that connects back, I'm sorry, and that connects
no,
back
no, go ahead. No, no.
to our behaviors. We might not know why we are add to cart, scrolling, binge watching something, right? We don't realize that it's connected to a trauma or something that happened in our life. So we use things as an escape. So unless we're drinking or drugging or gambling or, addicted to sex or whatever it is, unless it's that extreme, it's something more socially acceptable. We don't know that those are connected. And the more we heal one thing, the less we need those things to escape from. And we can be more involved in the things that we love, that we want to build, or connections, or, one of the things from COVID, there's less physical connection because there's not the same amount of places that people go. That's why I so appreciate your space, Karen, that you're seeing people in person, because Ann and I hear all the time that there are people, they don't want to do Zoom. They don't want to meet in
Right.
the electronic world. And so they're so appreciative of that there's a physical space to go to talk about these things and to heal. And, I think we need to get back to more of those things in person. And then also the balance of having people that are uncomfortable, teach them how to be online on Zoom and other platforms, because there's a place that's what's being created is some loneliness and disconnect. And they're talking about it to us, but only when we see them so rarely in person are they saying that.
And it was like during 2020 that you guys created like a Facebook group for Uncover Your Recovery, right? That's the first
Mhm,
time I heard it.
mhm.
And then I think I met with you maybe a year later, or I don't even know what, like that one summer that we met in the morning. And it was,
All of the years have blended together.
I know that was so crazy. I got up at like 4 in the morning to drive down to meet you at 5 in the morning for the sunrise.
Isn't it crazy? It was so good.
It was fun. I just remember drinking coffee with you in that place, wherever we were, and talking about it all. And like, the volume of work it was to get this book together. So it was like so much gathering of stories and organizing the execution of it. So each chapter kind of like leads in as like a teaching. What I remember best about your book, because I just have a hard time retaining things. Like I remember the essence,
Me
but I
too.
never, yeah.
Me too.
So
Same thing.
whenever I watch a movie for the second time, I'm always surprised at the ending. Um,
I love that.
but what I do recall from your book that I liked was the difference of your check marks or your circles or whatever. Like Anne has the I want to say like the type A or like and then Maura has the creative. So what was that about? Like explain that so people know what I'm talking about.
Well, that was pretty funny because, to be honest, Karen, that is not really how I operate. I'm a very spontaneous person most of the time.
There's the
But when it
visual.
came to these lists,
Yeah.
I just could not imagine them like all over the page scattered. And it was funny for me to even have that experience. I'm like, Maura, I can't do this like all over the place.
Yeah.
I want to have and then
And then you're
reminding myself too that I have a lot of friends who are very checkmark oriented. So
Mm-hmm.
then I was thinking about clients. So then
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about other people, and I was thinking about my yoga background of people's different doshas that they have, and that some people are very regimented in their pitta dosha, that it has to be this way. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the creative vata people that are like, fine, it's all over the page, it doesn't matter. And so when we decided, we were like, well, let's just do two of them. We'll do this one this way and this one that way. And it really works. So that's
and
kind of,
these literally are the exact same list. Be
Yeah, I
kind to yourself.
noticed. Yeah.
And Anne's list and Maura's list, it's the same list, except I was like, I'm sick of everything in order and check marks, and I want to scatter the words on the page and something out like intuitively your eye goes to something, right? So
Yeah.
this is so indicative. I think it's a deeper meaning of how we wrote this book. There's
Hmm.
my
Right.
voice and Anne's voice, and it doesn't necessarily mean like sometimes I do need lists with checklists. Sometimes she does need the scattered way, right? So
Right.
that alone gives people permission to see where are you today?
Yeah.
And it's at the end of every chapter. So the next chapter, you might want to do it a different way.
And it's just a reminder at the end of every chapter to like take some time out to be kind to yourself. It's basically to soothe your nervous system, right? That's the
Absolutely. Because there's
intention.
heavy stuff in here, even though we use humor, when you embark on something of this magnitude, and people have asked us, are you going to write the second book? And we both have said the same thing. You could take the next problem and start the book over, whatever is being presented in your life. I don't want to pigeonhole it in problem, but
Mhm.
you could start over again. You don't need part two. Use
Yeah.
this again and start over. And the answers will still be the same, the way, meaning however you approach it is in here as an option.
So uncovering your recovery, like what do you mean by that? Like figuring out what works for you in identifying whatever the struggle you're dealing with? Like what would you
Yeah.
say to that? Yeah.
I mean, uncover your recovery, right? Like, again, this is where we come to the enhancing word of recovery, and we say it in the book. If I said to you right now, oh, I was sick and I had the flu and I've recovered from the flu, you wouldn't think anything about it. But if I say to you, I've been in recovery for a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
people would be like, oh, sorry to hear about that. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know you had a
Like
problem.
she's
So
detoxing from
we want
alcohol.
to we
Yeah.
want to change the narrative and not maybe change it, but enhance the narrative around the word recovery,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a challenge, right? Some things work for some people. I think being more curious about the behavior of why you have this sticky pattern of continuing to do something over and over again. I'll just take alcohol for example, right? Because it's been a challenge for me, and I'll use that as my experience is that I haven't stopped completely drinking, but what I do is this. When I go to drink or I want to have a glass of wine, I think about why I'm doing it. What's going on? Is it because I'm bored and I have nothing to do, or did something go on during the day? I give myself like 5 minutes after I think, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll have a glass of wine. I give myself about 5 minutes. I distract myself. Maybe I'll go outside. Maybe I'll go do something, and then I'll come back and I'll notice it. And I'll say, well, if it's still there, then fine, maybe I will. But then I notice over time, as I'm more curious and aware, it settles. And then I just move on. Or maybe I'll make myself a cup of tea or whatever. But sometimes when we go to certain groups and are like, stop drinking, that's it. And then you do it, but then something happens. You haven't allowed the nervous system to kind of come into its own feeling and orientation around how is this working for you? So uncovering your recovery, uncovering that pattern of what's happening, and then you find your healing. You uncover your healing from that.
Yeah. Just catching the pattern and
Well, and I
questioning it.
think the recovery part for me is about we don't even know that we need to recover from some things because we know about the big things. But has anybody addressed like you lost a friend, you outgrew them, and you're fine with that, except you're not okay from the sadness of not being with that friend anymore, or you had a falling out with a family member, or your business changed, or you moved and you're grieving the house that you used to live in, even though the move is great, or the job change is great, or the new friend circle is great. Nobody ever talks about all the emotional stuff that you're carrying that you do need to recover from, meaning I need a place to put this. It's like, but we're so taught to look at all the great things, look at all the great things. Well, have we tied up the loose ends? This is why we have moon circles and sound baths and healing practices and all the things so that we can heal or recover from a lot of that. But we're not talking about it the same. We're not talking about it in terms of recovering and of healing.
Mm-hmm. And you're not giving any absolutes also. You're like, find what works for you, right? Like that's part of also what you guys have said. I'm like not like in a religious like dogma or like have to or like absolutes. It's
That's
just
why
like,
one of my favorite chapters is about the God of your understanding. Here's
Mhm.
your permission slip. What do you believe in? Ode to a pencil. I always say that because it's like, find out what your belief system is. I am so grateful for my upbringing in the Roman Catholic religion for the basis it gave me, but it did not contain all the things that I wound up exploring and learning and utilizing. So we need to give ourselves permission, right? Get curious, give ourselves permission, and then start to try on, investigate, feel into, experience so that we can decide what's working for us.
Yeah.
And would you say you have like a target audience like for this? It's just like being a human.
That's
You
a
know,
really good question.
That's a great question.
it's just like a
I think
spiritual journey, someone on a spiritual journey that's aware, like
I guess, well, I think it's great for anybody who's doing their work or who's done their work, but also if you're just jumping on board and you're never even thought about it before and someone plants that seed, right? I'm a big idea of seed planting. We can plant all the seeds as healers and the work that we do as people in compassion, but you can't sit there and say grow, right? So you have to plant the seed and allow that individual organism to start to come into its own natural rhythm. And I think that that's why so many things don't work when it's the same thing for everyone. Everybody's unique. We all know that, right? I have my unique fingerprint, Karen, you, Maura, her. So if I'm going to try and put me into, right, like people would say, well, you should go to the gym and run 5 miles. This is never happening in my lifetime. That's going to fix me. I'm not running. I'm just not running. It's not happening. But somebody else might say, you know what? I need to run. That's how I work my stuff out. And that
yeah.
go explore that then, right?
Mhm.
And that target audience that you asked about, I love that because what just came to mind for me is two people that wrote to me. They bought the book out of, I'm going to say, not obligation, but dedication to knowing me since I'm young, and that they'd buy it. But after they read it, and they took notes and highlighted and did things because they had to read it slower. This is their words, not mine. And not have anything to do with male or female, but they were both males. Nothing to do in our healing world, nothing to do with the spirituality or the work that we do. And they said, I didn't even realize that this is connected, one said, to my losing my wife
Hmm.
and what that how that's affected my life over the last couple of years. And it's opened my eyes to XYZ. The other person said, wow, I didn't even realize that it's an opportunity for me to entertain. I could get into the healing world on either end, being a coach, being the. So those two stories for me were like, you just don't know. You said
Yeah.
seed planter. You just don't know what, just like any book or any work could entice somebody. It's a seed planting. I love that.
Are you guys doing like group classes or anything to support people who are reading this?
Well,
Yes.
it's funny that you mentioned that. Yes, we are. We're
I
trying to
wasn't
create.
prompted other than by
We're
spirit.
we're trying to create a community online around using the book and grow it. And again, like Maura said before, people have an adversity to doing online stuff, and I would ask them to also be curious about why that is.
Mhm.
Because when you go onto an online group, I'm taking this training right now, and there are people there's 60 people in this training, and they're from all over the entire world. What an amazing thing that
Mhm.
technology can bring all of these people together. I met someone on this forum recently, and she's from the UK. I would never have gotten that experience to meet somebody. So
Mhm.
yes, we're trying to do these things, and yes, would it be great to do some things in person? Yes,
I
but
was figuring online more because it's a bigger reach, you know?
Absolutely. And the one we're doing, guys, it's called Community Connection, and we're meeting once a month. The next one, it's the next one, but it's also kind of the first one because it's the beginning of the year, is on January 22nd. So it's coming up. And then we're meeting once a month and not so much in order. We're doing the first, not like that. You know
Right.
us. We organically and with spirit say, you know, what's coming up this month or this week or whatever, and going from there. And then the people that show up too, right? How can we pre-plan what we're going to do for the next 12 sessions when you don't know who's coming and
Right.
what the dynamic of that'll be? So that's exciting.
That's
Yeah.
good. And then do you guys want to like talk about yourselves a little bit just so people know who you are?
Go ahead, Ann.
You just jumped right in. I'm like, go ahead. You want to go first, Anne?
A little bit about myself. I'm a cat lover. I think, right, it's so hard because sometimes I say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" Well, sometimes I don't really, you know, I guess I could say about myself that my passion in life, and this hasn't changed in years, is that my passion is to support people with unconditional compassion and love because I believe that that's not what I received growing up. And
Mhm.
so I've always felt that in the work that I've done since I left my other job and I've been doing my healing work is that I believe the very essence of just supporting people unconditionally and just sitting with someone and maybe allowing someone to say their story in a safe place might be exactly the healing that that person needs. So
Mhm.
that's kind of my thing. So I have my own private practice as, and I have an office in Bradley Beach, New Jersey. I'm there twice a month. And then I have clients here because I live in Pennsylvania. I have clients here. I'm a yoga teacher, which is one of my big passions because I teach chair yoga as my passion to make yoga accessible. I don't care what the age or what the physical limitation, we can accommodate that. So for me, as those modalities evolve, would I say I'm just a straight up this? No, I have a massage background like you do, Karen. But I bring different things in and spirit works through me. So right now I'm holding space and supporting people wherever they are. I work with individuals. I actually do work with couples sometimes and doing some group stuff. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
Thanks. And Maura.
Hi, I'm Maura. I'm a Taurus and I love the color red. I do. Look. So my biggest thing is still the angels. I love being connected to the angels, teaching about the angels, channeling the angels. And once a week I hold the angel meditation because it keeps us connected to the power of what the angels can do when we connect with them and then the clearing that happens. So to me, it's like a regrounding. And I feel like we all need that, regardless of what our belief system is. And, I can say now I'm a writer. I've always written since I was young. I remember writing poems when I was either in grammar school, but definitely in high school. So I love writing, even if it's just for myself. And, teaching is a passion of mine, having people come together. And I love Zoom because we closed, the different places. I had a healing center. It was very hard for after all those years to close and not have a physical place to go because it was part of my identity. My journey started, as a lot of people know and people that read the book, but when my mom died. And so that was, you know, I was 36. I was a little lost. I was very lost in my business aspects. I worked in New York, but I didn't have this spiritual journey going on. So once I got on this path, it felt like it clicked. And the healing that started happening for me, I wanted to bring that to others. And I still have that same feeling today. Like if you can help anybody, it's such a gift. And the message I got this year is for us, and this is to teach everybody that we need to be speaking to other people, almost like a mirror reflecting who or what they are. Some kind of compliment that's not fictitious, like we just saying, "Oh, I like your shirt." Oh, right, something like, "I appreciate your sincerity," or whatever it is, but that it comes from your heart, and saying that to people we know and even people that we may have just met. How do you what positive feeling do you get from them? Because that's part of the energy that this planet needs, and it's part of the healing energy that we all need. And so when I got that message at first, I was like, of course, always it's like curiosity, like, is that simple? And they said it's not simple because it's not always easy for people to be vulnerable when they're talking to somebody else. They say something a little more surface, right? Rather than the deeper. But once you do that, it also gives something back to yourself. And I didn't understand it until they not only just showed me how to do that, but then when I started doing it more, I do that naturally anyway. Like people look at me in in a supermarket or something, I'll say something to them because it's just put on my heart to say it. And then they're so shocked, right? Like taken back, not just like, oh, nice shoes, but something. And to me, it's a string from our hearts that's connecting us all, and we need to start to utilize that. So I think that's part of my work and my passion here.
Like helping people feel seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And realistically, right? Like meaning how many people I've said, you have a great sense of humor, and they're like, I do, right? People don't really, I don't think we know
Yeah.
ourselves enough.
Yeah. It's like when you say it out loud, it's like it becomes more profound. They hear it. Yeah.
Acknowledgement. Yes. Yes, you're right.
I know. That's part of like what when I do my work, I'm like, I'm just telling you what you already know, but having me say it makes it more profound because it's like, who am I? I'm just somebody who read your energy and told you what I saw. You know,
Now, can
I
you
don't know.
imagine if more of us were doing that, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, the word is sincerity. The
Yeah.
word is, it has to come from a place of sincerity. Otherwise, we're just adding more noise to the world.
Yeah.
I think too, when you said that, Karen, like when you asked, do I want to say something about myself? And I said, I'm a lover of cats, right? I go back to this thing all the time that we identify with what we do for a living. I really, right? It's that old, do you remember the Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer, where she asked the question, her whole poem, and it's actually a little book. It says, I don't care what you do for a living. I want to know what feeds your heart. I want to know
Oh,
what feeds your
yes.
soul, right? So that's Orion Mountain Dreamer. That's her poem, The Invitation to, I don't really care. Because, and I
Right.
think
I
for
know.
me personally, that's been really interesting for me to bear witness to my husband's change in his life of not working in his big job anymore and watching him struggle with his identity as and that construct, especially with men, I'm just going to say it, I feel the old construct is that they were providers and that they were workers.
Hmm.
And we've been a lot. I've been a sister, I've been a daughter, I've been an auntie, a mother, I've been all of those things. But for watching him try and navigate this new place for himself of who am I? And I just said to him today, what you are is this compassionate human being that loves to give and support others, especially the senior citizen population. And
Hmm.
that's not a title of fixed operations director of what you used to be,
Yeah.
right? And so I want to bring that to myself instead of say I'm a massage therapist and I'm a yoga teacher, and yes, I get that because I think that has something, but that's that bigger conversation where you're
Yeah.
saying more is
Yeah.
like saying to somebody, gosh, your sense of humor or the way that you just answered that question is really awesome, or right,
Yes.
It's funny.
being seen, like you said,
Yeah.
Karen.
Well, there's some comedian, and I don't remember who it is, and my husband and I were cracking up, but he was saying, like, talking to a French person, like, what do you do? They're like, oh, I breathe, I do this, they're like, no, but what do you do for but no, what do you do? What do you do for, and they're like, I like to go for walks. Like it was like they don't identify with work as their identity there. And it was
That's
just
so
a
good.
cultural difference. But it was just so funny the way the guy told the story, because it was just like the guy was like stumped, like, what do you mean? Like, like, who am I and what do I do? Oh, what do I do for work? That's different. It's just like, because we so as Americans so identify with that as everything. So yeah, that's an interesting transition for your husband to.
Oh, it's been big and it's been since 2017 that he's trying to just really figure that out. And it was really, really hard for him. And,
Mhm.
through therapy, he also had a great therapist who identified you just lost your validation as a human because in American society and on construct of that,
Yeah.
we identify of who you are.
Yeah, and what you
Who
make.
who
Yeah.
were you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's how we identify success, right? So success is your job title and what we do. Nobody thinks you're successful if you have a great sense of humor, a caring personality, you're the kindest person on the planet, right? We don't say, "Oh, you're so successful," but in reality, we need to redefine these things.
Oh, I know it's
Yes.
hard because like I've been making like every year I make a little bit more money than the year before, and then last year I didn't, and I was like, and it's like, dude, how many lives have I helped? Like, how much joy have I brought? You know, and I'm like, oh
That's
my God,
Yeah.
right.
don't think that I count less just because the dollars didn't add up this year as high as they did in the last years. You know, it's just, and like I talked to a few people and we're all in the same boat. So make me feel better. Like
Yeah.
everyone had like it was a tougher year for a lot of people. So, but like, you know, to be like, oh, this is how much I made, like, and it's like, dude, it's ridiculous. I have to, you know, so I've been working at like deconstructing that. So
That's fantastic.
don't put my worth in, you know, the dollars earned.
And this could tie right back to a chapter that we not shy away from, but our emotions, right? We had more somersaults going through this chapter than any of the chapters. And it's because identifying our emotions. When were we taught from young to identify our emotions? It's like, I love Anne's analogy was if we all had a room to go into and say, you're angry, go in there and hit a pillow and write on the wall and run around and scream and yell and dance to songs, get it all out so that you could,
Yeah.
what? We're like, I'll give you something to cry about. That's what we grew up with, right? You're fine. You don't need anything. You don't,
Yeah.
right? So now that this whole new way of dealing with emotions, and there's books and there's tools and there's, I mentioned Diane Abler for a reason in the book because she wrote a little spot of, and the little spot of are books and tools of all the emotions, a little spot of anger, a little spot of joy, a little spot. She has
Yeah.
the little uh toys like stuffed animals. She has blocks, she has books, she has all from young people learn how do you feel? Frustrated, annoyed, disappointed,
Yeah.
like what? And I believe that's the key to understanding ourselves because if we were able to express ourselves, identify our emotions and know
Yeah.
what they are, we'd be
Yeah.
better
Oh yeah.
adjusted, we'd be feeling.
You guys talked about like the three emotions. Did you talk about that in your book? Like happy, sad, mad, or something like that? Like, did you
That
mention?
was me.
Okay,
Yep.
I remember. I
That's
think
it.
I'm like, I remember that. But like, yeah, because it's true, you know. And there's so many more nuances, and like the what was it like the Abraham Hicks, like the scale, the pyramid of emotions or whatever, like that, empowering emotions, like you know, to be
You
angry.
have no idea
Yeah.
how long this took to decide on what we were going to put, how we were going to put it, because we had we had a wheel of emotions, we had this, we had so many different things,
Yeah.
but we wanted it really, I don't want to say simple, but we wanted it broken down so that we can look at it and say, yeah, like, how are we going to learn this stuff if we were never
If
taught
you don't
it? And
have
now
the
we're
language,
this.
yeah, you don't have the language for it. And then or you have someone just telling you no, you're fine. And like yesterday I visited a baby, my friend's baby, he's adorable, and he had a wooden rattle in his hand and he clonked himself in the head with it, and it was like you heard the clonk, you know. And then he like looked over at his mom, and like I don't know, I remember like watching it being like, oh, like you know, you don't want to overly react, you know. And I don't know that she did, but once he looked at her he cried, and then she picked him up. And then I was saying to him, like, you know, we were talking like that, you know, that meta conversation of being like, oh, you don't want to say you're okay, you don't want to say you're fine because he might not be fine, he's hurting, you know, like, but you don't want to be like, you know,
The
overly.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like the difference in 20 years, like, because I mean that's when my kids were babies, and I know I did, you're fine, it's okay, you're fine, you know. And
Yes.
like that's so fucked up. So it's like trying to bring that awareness to my friend, and like she's got the awareness anyway, but I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know the right thing to do for him, you know, like acknowledge that it hurts, but you don't want him to like, you know, it's he's only
That
six.
is a perfect example.
It is. It is because nowadays, right, people, right, the new psychology, thank God that we're talking about these things and honoring your children's feelings, right? We were allowed to feel all the emotions, only happiness, right? You can feel them all except for happy. That will be what you are, right? And that whole idea of your parents saying to you, but you know, when you go back and we say it in the book, or maybe we don't, but it's about, I
We
always say
don't
this
even
to,
know.
I say this to my clients all the time. You being happy and not being sad or mad when you were little that was a reflection on your parents. So you had to be happy. You
Yeah.
can't be mad, sad, disappointed, frustrated, mad all the time because then they're doing a shitty job as parents and you can't accept that responsibility. So you're allowed to be happy. That's
Yeah.
the best
And
emotion to be.
I only heard the term just a few months ago, the good girl complex or something. And I was like, damn, like there was some, you know, somebody on Instagram talking about it, and I sent it to the same friend with the baby, and we were like, oh shit, like, because you know, we might not feel like we've dealt with too many traumatic, terrible things, but like that's definitely something that, you know, be the good girl, you know, like whatever. I can't even remember what the examples were, but just like smoothing it out. It's fine. We're good, you know, all's well. So
Exactly.
like,
And
man.
there's a whole comedy skit about two women in a park, and the child keeps doing something, and the one mother says something, and the other woman says, "We don't say that anymore. What we say is," and she keeps correcting her and correcting her and correcting her, and it's like she's ready to lose her mind because she's like, "I don't know what to do," and that's where we are. Right? We're between the, you know, I know you clunked yourself in the head. You don't feel great, but it's gonna be
He had
okay.
a red mark. I mean, like it was justified, but it was like it's okay. Like I remember when my kids were little and something like that would happen. We like, oh, bad rattle, you know, like like project it onto like the thing, so you're not like just upset. Like, hey, yeah, that was annoying. That's too bad that that happened. But that it was because it was actually like putting the blame on something else. Like I don't know what if that was right or not, but like that was the way I handled those, you know. But it's like we're so hyper analytical and aware now that we don't want to do the wrong thing.
The first
But
time
how
I
did
saw
we learn how? Oh, sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No, the first time I saw someone, a child fell, we were outside, and a child fell on the sidewalk, and the person sat down next to them, they were about to cry, and they go, "Look at the crack that happened in the sidewalk." And the
Yeah.
child was so stunned by what they did, they forgot to cry. They were like I did that?
Yeah, my mom would do that with like if someone fell hard on their butt, she'd be like, "Oh, let me see," and she'd like pull down like and see, "Oh, you cracked your butt," and then it would be very funny, you know. So
I don't think there's a right and a wrong way, right?
yeah,
We're doing the best we can.
And we all know this. Babies don't come with it with manuals, and then we have to go back to ancestry. Where
hmm
are you learning how to be a parent from your ancestors? And where are they learning? And then where are they learning? And then put the constructs and the religious this and the way your society and your culture and all of that come together. And the questions we ask in the book, are you still buying the same toilet paper your family did? You never questioned that you could use any other kind of toilet paper
right.
in your whole life, because that's how your parents, right? You were raised, children are to be seen and not heard, right?
hmm
So how, if that's still a construct in your family of origin, then you're probably going to raise your kids that way.
Oh, and
So
did you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
so when you open up these conversations more, was that thing that you were talking about where I sent that thing to you that time where the grandmother was helping her daughter with the baby, and the little baby was coming down the slide, and she was like, be careful, the grandmother, and the daughter's like, we don't say be careful anymore, we say what's your plan? And the grandmother was like, what's your plan? I don't even know my fucking plan. How's that gonna know? And the whole skit, the whole thing was about the boomer mother saying what she would have normally said. And we say gentle hands now. We don't say not slap. But it was the fun. But there it is, right there, of like
That's the
how we
one.
parent now is different than. Thank God we're a little bit more awake, sort of.
For sure. I know. Well, I was thinking of that, and I think this might have made it into your book, but I'm not sure. But like the roast in the pan, did you guys with that story in your? It was a story that I thought was my mom's, but then I heard it like in a bigger public thing. So it's like it's just like a story. But like, why do we cut the ends off of the roast when we cook it? I don't know. That's what my mom did, and then they called the mom, and then it's like, oh, my pan was too small, you know, and it wasn't like that was how to handle the roast. It was just because the mom's pan was small. So it's like sometimes you got to question like where do these things come from and why?
And then the next step is here's your permission slip to do it a different way, right?
Right?
Exactly.
Get a
Sometimes
bigger
we really
pan or
do.
do right.
But did you ever notice the resistance to change? Like, what if we do it wrong? There's a fear in there. And then once you get permission, and then we teach, how about you give yourself permission? We're like, I could do that. So we give ourselves permission, and there's the freedom. It's like, I mean, don't go hog wild. Like, I give myself permission to do whatever the hell I want. But in a way, right?
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
some of that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
To be more curious, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
be more curious about it.
Well, that's perfect. Perfect circle of moment there because that was the first thing you said.
So let me ask you this, Karen, what are you going to give yourself permission to do this year?
I don't know. Have more fun.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely have a resistance to like my husband has more fun than I do, so But we had fun the other night. We sang songs. I sang songs to the dog.
I love it. That's
That's
so fun.
fantastic.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so how about you?
And what are you giving yourself permission?
I have permission this year to enhance things. That's kind of my word this year, of enhancing my life in ways that, not so much doing so many new things, but maybe enhancing the things I already do in having them deeper. So just a super quick example is, I've been a yoga teacher for almost, was it 10 years? I've been practicing for over 25. And this year I'm going to dive a little deeper and enhance my deeper knowledge of yoga in different ways. And I want to just deepen my practice. And I always say that things evolve, right? You learn something. I learned Ayurveda, but I always unpack it. So this year I want to just unpack some different things in the yoga philosophy. And so I'm not so much going to go out and learn a new modality. I'm going to stay within the yoga idea, but I want to enhance it, and for me personally, and not so much. And that will of course trickle into my own clients and things, but that's what I'm doing. More, what are you doing?
I have a strange type thing. I am giving myself permission for things to not make sense. So every year it's everything goes in order. You figure out what you're going to do. You start this, you go there, you do the next thing. The alphabet's in order for you. You start A, B, and I'm not doing that. I'm the scattered page. I want things, when I say not make sense, like I guess you move more intuitively, like what are you drawn to, but it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. And then I bet at the end of the year it will, but I'm not, that doesn't come easily for me, right? I like more, even though I'm scattered stuff, I like more how to manage your life. You do things in a certain way, it'll feel more controllable, especially if you come from trauma. It's not easy to do things that feel a little bit chaotic, but at the same time, I know that that's what I'm being called to do this year. So I'm going to see, I'm a little curious about how that's going to work out, but I'm willing to give it a try.
I love that. I'm just going to say this. I have this other couple of people that I talked to, and one of the words of the people in the group was that they want to be more creative. And so what ended up happening was they came up with this thing, and they were actually cards. She created these cards and she did it and she made them happen, like oracle cards. Then she got so excited. Now she came up with 30 different things she wanted to do. And then she realized that maybe she needed to step back from the creativity, because now it was going to get so overwhelming that she wasn't going to have ease.
Right. I know it's a hard balance sometimes.
It
You
is
get
a hard
excited
balance.
and you get a bunch of ideas and you're like, this is going to take a lot to execute, you know?
Yeah.
I have ideas that float and I like make a note in my phone. I'm like, I'll get to that eventually. Like, I don't know. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'll make the note of the idea and we'll see when it comes together. But I know that's the danger in being creative, is like so many things could come up and then you're like, now what? Now I'm freaking out. Now I've overbooked my schedule, not on purpose, and my nervous system is tweaking.
Or you put 100% to it and it doesn't completely work out, like our angel circle thing that I
Right.
wanted to
I just
do. And
found the
then
stickers
I
yesterday.
was so upset. Like, I'm like, they were so strongly saying we should do this. And then it was like, I don't know. Then I get disappointed, right? In myself. Like, I'm like, you gave me this idea. We have the people to do it. Why wouldn't you let it work out like, whatever? And some things we're never going to really know or understand.
Right.
And it's frustrating. But
I
I
know.
do want to say, because I know we're going to wrap up our time now, we do have that Uncover Your Healing page on Facebook, and we do invite people to come to follow us to see where we're going to be and what we're doing. And,
Mhm.
like you, Karen, we try to give people affordable things to do. So it's across the board for
Right.
offerings. And we'd love for people to come see us at the book signings. Saturday we were in Barnes and Noble in Eatontown, and it's a little surreal, right? Like you're sitting in Barnes and Noble, you're like, am I in Barnes and Noble signing books? Right? So, and then we've been invited to go to the Barnes and Noble in Staten Island. I'm like, we're gonna be in Staten Island, like all the different places. So it's been such a whirlwind ride. And like you said, the book just came out, regardless of how long it took. It came out November 11th, and here we are. It's only January, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's felt like a whirlwind because it has been.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And you'll get me, I mean, I'll write down in the show notes and all that stuff, like your websites and stuff. You both have websites and the information
Yeah.
for the book on there. The book
Yeah.
doesn't have its own website, right? It's just connected to both your own individual.
Both of our websites.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
and the
cool.
Facebook page, but that's so cool.
We'll
Yeah.
share the information. People will find you. And those that already know you are excited to hear you talk today. So
And can you
Yeah.
tell me again? I really do want to know, even on this call, but when is your Spiritual Seekers group?
it just was.
It was.
But it's
Okay.
available online all the time. I
It is.
have to set up I haven't set up the automations because that's like one part of business I really don't like.
Me
But
too.
but if people were ever interested in taking that course, all it takes is an email to me and I'll forward all the links. I just don't have the automation set up, but
Okay,
it's
good.
a good foundation for people who are new on
It
this.
is, and I've been getting that to share with people, and obviously I missed the boat yet again, but that's also
So
made
that
the
was, yeah, I just offered it as an in-person class this past Saturday, but actually I didn't end up running it. So it did like I ended up forwarding the one person who signed up. Like, I'm like, I don't know, like maybe this is just meant to like live on a shelf because like, I'm like, I'll just do whatever it comes
or
at.
live electronically, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So they could just take it at their own pace. Like each call is like 30 minutes and it's all on YouTube, like on a private link.
I
So
think it's a wonderful tool for people that need to delve into this work. So I love it. That's why I want us to share it more.
yeah,
Yeah.
being an empath and how to protect your energy, about the chakras, about the crystals, and coming out of the closet. Some people it's a big deal, and some people it's not. So we kind of
I
talk about
agree.
that. And then the last class or topic is about psychic development. So I kind of break up those classes and offer them throughout the year anyway as an in-person thing. So if
Right.
people followed me, like they would see it like moonmagicwellness.com, and I post all my stuff on there and on Instagram and all that. But it's like I have a psychic class coming up in February and an empath class at the end of February. So I just like it's like fun and it's like so empowering. It's for people to realize all this stuff is accessible, and it's just a matter of like having permission yet again, to like it's okay that I sense these things and I'm not crazy and I'm not weird. It's actually the rest of the world that's weird that has shut this down for so long. So
Yes. That's
We're going to make
exactly
this an
correct.
empowerment year, right? That's what
yeah.
2025 is. That's why the three of us do the work we do, and we're happy to help others.
Yeah, and there's always more
Absolutely.
people waking up to it. So it's like I love the old regular people, and I'm always loving, welcoming new people into it. And it's just like, come on, hop on board, let's go. So
And the permission, right? There it is, the permission to be curious about, oh, well, maybe I don't know anything about mediumship, but when I was little, I used to see, right? And then giving them permission to do that. Or, I've always been curious about angels because I think I always have an angel following me around and I'm not really sure. And then there's that permission.
mhm.
And we're in that time, I think, where the world is opening its vastness to coming back to our inner wisdom and exploring that. And so many of us are doing the work and we need to share that. There's so much to go around. It's not
It
grippy.
hurts to see people still suffering with the insecurity or the dogma that's telling them that they're wrong, so it's like it's almost like you're going backward in the past to hear these people that this is what they're currently feeling and experiencing. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
all about normalizing it and bringing it down to earth and like making it acceptable. And I just talk about it normally and whatever, like that's just moon magic, like on the street, like with a witch on the door and talking about all these things plainly, like as if it's just like another store in this town, so
Everyday magic.
we got
And
to
we're
make it
doing that class now once a week. I'm teaching
every
creating your
day.
magic.
Which one? What is it called?
Creating magic, because
Okay.
we need to create magic this year. And so each Thursday we're doing that. It's an affordable $10 class, but we're doing that to start talking about because some people are afraid of the word. Like you
Yeah.
said, magic, like, right?
Yeah.
Moon magic, all kinds of magic, spiritual magic. And I'll just tell you one quick thing before we go. Our cover, this picture is actually from the Space Hub. Oh, it really is the universe. It is
Oh,
the
that's
picture
awesome.
of the
It's
universe.
the Webb, it's the
Inside.
James Webb Space
Right.
Telescope, and
Right.
that's one of the pictures of the cosmos from that telescope.
That's awesome.
So let's open it up and uncover it this year.
Perfect. Thank you guys.
Bring it in.
I appreciate you guys.
Karen,
Thank
thank
for
you
everything,
so
really.
much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. And I'll
It's a
post it
great
soon
time.
and I'll let you know and all that. So
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks,
thanks, guys.
Karen.